Hello and good day. My name is Dee DeShawn and I'm a member of the Ann Arbor Area League of Women Voters serving all of Washtenaw County. Our league chapter is very pleased to bring you today's presentation of Lunch and Learn, Boots on the Ground, how township and city clerks view this election. I would like you to know that you will be muted throughout this presentation and your video will be turned off as well. Please help us out by keeping yourself muted and your video off. Our guests today are Joan Sampieri, president of our local league, and the clerks from the city of Dexter and Sylvan Township. As you know, the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan civic organization that encourages informed and active participation by all citizens. The League works to increase understanding of major public policy issues and serves to strengthen and broaden knowledge about our form of government and democracy. While the League does not support candidates or parties, we do take stands on issues we have studied. One of the League's most important goals is to assist voters in making informed choices at the polls. Just as you know, we are streaming this presentation on Facebook and we are being recorded so that this program will be on demand on our YouTube channel, which you can find on our website, lwvannarbor.org. I hope you brought your lunch or at least a cup of coffee and settle back as we begin our program. And be sure to write any questions that you have for our clerks in the chat function. If you just move the mouse on your screen, you will see the chat function. It will be either at the top or at the bottom of your screen. So with that, Joan Sampieri, take it away.
It's always a challenge to remember to unmute. Good morning, everyone. This may be a little disconnected today. I live out in Bridgewater Township, which is one of our lovely rural areas that does not yet have extensive broadband. And if I slow down or begin to freeze, we're going to turn this back over to Dee so that you are not interrupted. I'm hoping that I can stay with you the whole time. I may choose to remove my video so that it's not interfering either. But let's hope that this works. I know that the county's doing a tremendous number of things to get broadband out to the rest of us in the world. And let's hope that we can make that work soon. So I'd like to introduce you to the clerks who are joining us. We have Kathleen Kennedy from Sylvan Township. And I see your face on the screen, Kathleen. And we have Justin, whose face is not on the screen because unfortunately he's traveling, but he's joining us and we're very grateful for that. He's joining us by phone. So if you guys would unmute, I have some questions to start, please. The clerk's job is something that we may not always by telling us what the tasks are of the clerk and whether you are an elected or an appointed official.
Would Justin like to go first? Is Justin available?
Justin? He may be muted. Why don't you start, Kathleen, and we'll wait for him.
Wonderful. I'm in a bit of the same situation, Joan, with my internet connection, and I'm getting messages coming up saying it's unstable. Hopefully I'll be able to stay through the whole meeting. So I am a township clerk, which is an elected position. Most of the time cities have hired positions. So this position at the township level is an elected position. And I was appointed to fill a seat in 2014. The clerks ran from 2012 to 2016, and the clerk at that time was not able to continue and recommended I be appointed to the position. And then I ran again successfully for the seat in 2016. And I am again on the ballot for November for the seat again, which makes it a little tricky to administer election, but also not be present more than necessary in the polling place, because I have to make sure I'm not campaigning. There's no campaigning within 100 feet. So I will be here, but this election is really, as it always is, solidly in the hands of the election inspectors who are appointed to the position to run the election. So I will be here in my office for problems or things that come up. But other than that, election day is their day to run.
Thank you. Justin?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, thanks.
Oh, okay, great. So I am the clerk and assistant to the city manager. I started with the city of Dexter in January of 2015. And in November of 2014, just before I came on board, the Dexter was a village and then voted to adopt a charter in November of 2014 and became a city. So prior to becoming a city, the city of Dexter was not responsible for elections and assessing as a village. So I had a unique opportunity to be able to be kind of on the ground floor in developing the elections program. And as a appointed city clerk, elections is one responsibility of many. I'm also the staff liaison to the Parks and Recreation Commission, staff liaison to our Arts, Culture, and Heritage Committee. I'm also responsible for some IT, some HR. But on elections, I am the elections administrator, and I work every day in the office full time, administering, distributing absentee ballots, which, you know, these days, that's most of my day, since we're at about a little over 60% of registered Dexter voters having requested an absentee ballot. And I'm here to and happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Okay. So kind of unusual things that we do here in Michigan, probably done in a lot of other places, is that we do a public accuracy test of our voting equipment prior to the election. Ann Arbor just held its public accuracy test this morning, and a league member attended. She found it very interesting, and we usually do find it interesting. So I'm hoping that the two of you can walk us through what it is and why it's important. But let me tell you one of the things that she learned while she was attending. She said that as they were talking, and she was the only non-elected or appointed official there. She was the only member of the public. I don't think you ever get members of the public except league members. And she said that she learned that all the absentee ballots are stored in a vault on the 6th floor of City Hall, and that vault has a 24-hour video surveillance camera. So can you walk us, Justin, would you take the first answer? Can you tell us a little bit about what that entails and what your security issues are with the ballots?
If I break up, I'm sorry. A little less reception. Can you still hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. So public accuracy test is the process by which basically we prove that the tabulators are going to do what they're supposed to do. So prior to the public accuracy test, we hold a preliminary accuracy test where we create a test deck and a spreadsheet that identifies what each ballot is going to do and how the votes are going to be counted on each ballot. And then it summarizes what the results should be if the tabulators are doing what they're supposed to be doing. So for the public accuracy test, members of the public are invited to attend and watch as the Election Commission runs the test deck through the tabulators. And the test deck will include things like overvoting certain sections, undervoting certain. The straight party selections work as intended. Pretty much any kind of scenario that you can think of is included on one ballot or another in the test deck. So as we're running ballots through as part of public accuracy, the members of the public are invited to take a look at the test and investigate, take a look at the results when they out and verify that yes, this ballot that had overvotes didn't count those overvotes. This ballot that was voted correctly did count correctly. So that's our process for the public accuracy test. With regard to ballot security, all of our ballots are locked and sealed up in the city office. We're fairly office, but they are secure. They are under lock, and it would take quite a bit for someone to be able to get at our ballots.
Okay, thank you. Kathleen?
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So that is the same process we do here in Sylvan. It's a statewide thing. We have the test deck, as Justin said, and a predetermined chart of results, what those ballots should end up on the tabulator tape. We did our accuracy test yesterday, and Joan, you are correct. We rarely have any public come. I think last time we did, it was an individual from the League of Women Voters, and she was very impressed that this is a process. And I think it does give us confidence and make us feel good that we're making sure that the programming, everything will work on election day so that ballots are accurately tabulated. Excuse me. Here in Sylvan Township, we are, like Justin said, we are about at 60% of our registered voters having requested an absentee ballot. I think we have about half, maybe a little more than half of them back at this time. And so those ballots are locked up. We have an elections closet, and I am the only person who has the key, my deputy and I. So we keep those locked up. When they're received, we incorporate them into the bunches, and we keep them locked up until election day morning, when the election inspectors are here to start opening the envelopes and counting the ballots. So yeah, and then the test deck, after we run the test deck, that is all locked up and sealed and kept per the retention schedule that the state puts forward for really all of our election documents. And so those are kept. The public is welcome to come and watch, and as Justin said, look over ballots, look over the results to make sure that everything is working as it should be.
That's great.
And just follow up, the City of Dexter's public accuracy test is this coming Thursday. It's October 29th at 9 a.m. Here in the city, up in the city office.
Thank you, Justin. So Kathleen, I've watched the public accuracy test, and there's one last piece that you do at the end. You transmit the information electronically to the county clerk's office. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So the new tabulators that Washtenaw County selected Hart as a vendor. One of the nice things about the new tabulators is they have modems which will automatically, once the polls are closed, it will start transmitting the results to Washtenaw County. So that is something that we want to test also as part of the public accuracy test. So when we've run the ballots through, we watch to make sure that it's connecting. The portal at the Washtenaw County Clerk's office has to be open as well. There's a lot of security that has gone around this. So we need to make sure that we are connected. And then they would like for us to call. So yesterday, or when we did the accuracy test on Wednesday, we saw the results go through, and then I phoned the county clerk's office to confirm. We had 3 tabulators. 2 of them will be for counting absentee ballots and 1 will be here in the precinct. So we made sure that all 3 of those tabulators did send those results to the county. We used to, with the old equipment, we had to unplug it and run it and plug it into the fax machine and try to transmit that way. So this is a much better, modern, more secure way for us to, transmit those results at the end of the night.
And
to follow up on that,
Adam,
sorry.
Go ahead.
To follow up on that a little bit, for election night, even though we do transmit the results through the modem directly to the county, we do have physical paper ballots that we store, and each tabulator prints out a series of results tapes, the results which should and do match the modem transmission. So if there are ever any questions about the safety or accuracy of what gets modemed over to the county, we do still have those physical paper records as certification that those are accurate.
Correct. And at this time, we still, even though they've transmitted the results at the end of the night, clerks are required to drive the results and some of the paperwork, the poll book, etc., to the county office on election night. So even though the results are transmitted, we as clerks are following up that night with documentation of the number of votes tabulated, etc. So those things match. Thank you, Justin. That's a good point.
Thank you. There are a number of issues that have come up. One that I watched during a public accuracy test in a much smaller community than yours, Kathleen, although that seems very, at the end of the night, had to move the ballot box to the front door, had to roll it out to the front door to connect with, in order to be able to transmit, because as you and I know, and Justin probably doesn't have the same problem, any internet access out here is really tricky. Is that something you've faced?
The internet connection is tricky. The modems that are connected to the results are through cell phone, so they transmit that way. But I know the county had a real process involved finding which service was going to work best for Washtenaw County as a whole, because perhaps AT&T worked in Sylvan, but maybe where you are, Joan, it doesn't work so well. Maybe Verizon works better where you are. So it was a real juggling act, I think, on behalf of the county clerk's office to find the best system that would work for this very, very varied, county that we have here with all sorts of different capabilities and things. So I know that was not easy for them. We haven't had trouble with that. But yeah.
And we also have not had any trouble with the modems connecting.
Dee's got her hand up.
Yes, we had a question on chat that pertains to this topic. Sarah Fink wants to know if there's encryption at both ends of the transmission.
Yes, as far as I know, there is an encryption on both ends, and I'm not a really techie person, but I know that the county has done a lot of work with their IT and security to make sure that the portal that is used transmitting our results to theirs is secure. And I wish I had the words and the knowledge to better explain it in technology terms, but I know that the county worked really hard to make sure that the information is safely transmitted and encrypted.
Anything to add, Justin?
No, I think Kathleen did a really good job of explaining that.
So the direct connection from the modem to the way in which it's transmitted means that it doesn't go across the internet, which can be hacked, which makes us, there's one more step that makes us safer. Is that correct? Either of you?
That's my understanding, correct.
Okay, okay. Dee, there's another question.
Yes, and it's from Sarah Fink, who is a new election inspector as of August. So she has her questions. She wondered, do you save tabulations also on a flash drive, which she says that's the procedure in Scioto Township.
Yes,
Kathleen? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Justin, go ahead.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yes, so there are flash drives that are plugged into under lock on each tabulator. And so at the end of the night, as we're delivering the physical paper results to the county, one of the other things that gets delivered is that flash drive. And the results are also saved on that flash drive. So there is quite a bit of redundancy in how the results are transmitted and how the results are saved.
Okay. So looking forward to Election Day, what kinds of things do you have to do in this next week and a half? And what kinds of hours are you putting in? This must be a really heavy duty time for the two of you. Kathleen, do you want to start off?
Sure. Well, we are anticipating a lot of ballots still being returned. And when we receive or issue ballots, we log into the qualified voter file, which is connected to Secretary of State. And the state of Michigan has done a tremendous job of really stepping up security for that program. So they only allow users of the clerk or the deputy clerk, so which is good. And they've added in now a multi authentication process for us. It's not simply sufficient to have a username and a password. Now we have a multi-layer process in order to access the program. So that's wonderful. And so because of that, I'll be doing a lot of that work, checking signatures. I'm going to be touching base with all my election inspectors that they've been trained. I'll be setting up sort of a diagram of the precinct and the absent voter count board. I would like to brush up on rules and things surrounding challengers and poll watchers. I know we're expecting more than we have ever had in the past. So I want to make sure that I and also the chairperson in each of the places is aware of what those individuals are able to do and how they're able to challenge things. So it's been a lot of hours. The smaller townships, it's a little difficult because often these jobs are seen as part-time jobs. And so we are compensated along part-time lines and we have hours that are part-time. So it's difficult because I'm definitely putting in more hours than that. And early in the meeting, my husband brought some things into me and there was a voter outside and he wanted to get a ballot, and gosh, I'm going to get him a ballot if he's here to do that. So sometimes when I expect to leave at 3, I'm here later, but it's all for a great cause, a cause that I know you with the League of Women Voters really wrap your arms around. It doesn't matter what party, what matters is that people get out and vote. So it's been a lot of additional hours. But again, it's for a great cause, and maybe, maybe we can make some structure changes too in these smaller townships and sort of recognize that these are large jobs, that there's, I'm not sure there's anything that's more important we do here at the township than administering elections. But that's, maybe I have a biased opinion.
Like you, Justin.
Yeah, so I would echo everything that Kathleen said. But I am in the office for full-time hours. But even with full-time hours, the amount of time spent for elections does spike quite a bit the couple of weeks, and especially the couple of days prior to each election, between processing absentee ballots, preparing supplies. Next week, I'm hosting some supplemental trainings for all of my election inspectors. So they will attend the required once every 2-year training through Washtenaw County. But prior to each election, I also host a few optional training sessions for all of my election inspectors, just to kind of review what might be new, different procedures for each election, kind of an update and specifics that the county might not get into that are specific to the city. So even with full-time hours, I'll be putting in extra hours next week and especially the following week. We're also required to be open a minimum of 8 hours the weekend before, between that Saturday and Sunday. So the city of Dexter will have open office hours the Saturday prior to the election from 9 to 5. And I'll be there. We will be there for that.
Okay, and Dee, I see there's a question.
Yes, a couple, if that's okay to do as we go along here.
I think so.
We have a question. Do you let a voter know if there is a signature issue or a missing date? And I assume this is on an absentee ballot. And I have heard the term curing about absentee ballots. Could one or the other of you respond to that, please?
Sure. So we contact voters immediately if a ballot comes in without a signature, or if there is some issue with the signature, or whatever the case may be. We do our best to reach out immediately through whatever means we have to contact them. Whether that means if we have a phone number on file in the qualified voter file, or an email, or if I have to look them up in the phone book, or travel to their house and knock on the door. Our goal is to get those sort of issues resolved as soon as possible before Election Day.
Yeah, and we do the same thing here. It's nice when voters on their application can supply information like a phone number or an email address, and then it's easy to contact people. If I come across a signature that doesn't match and I contact the voter, there's an easy remedy. What I usually have them do is bring in their an ID with their picture, and so I can verify that they are who they say they are, and then have them sign a new voter registration form. And I can upload a secondary signature because people's signatures change. Health things happen. Most of the time I'm finding it with young people who maybe signed when they were 18 and they're now 23 and their signature looks completely different. And so they're happy to come in and make sure that's straight. I think everybody feels good that that's an extra layer here in Michigan that we have, where we check signatures on applications and on ballots.
Wonderful. Yes, Dee, more questions. Good.
Yes. Yeah, a couple of them here. It seems, when Harvey Summers says, it seems likely that more voters of one party will vote in person on November 3rd, while the other party's voters will mostly be voting by absentee ballot. Will you both pledge not to declare winners until all votes have been counted, even if this process extends beyond November 3rd?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we don't really declare winners. The county elections board certifies the election, and so the election certification process usually takes a couple of weeks, and it's not until that occurs that really winners are declared, as far as we're concerned.
Yes, and
Thank
another
you.
question.
Dee, just one second.
Sure.
There is a whole process, and thank you for that, both of you. You will actually find a special edition of the Ann Arbor League's newsletter, and that'll come out this Monday. The ballot leaves your hands to the final count by the U.S. Board of Canvassers, who certify the presidential election, which does not happen until January. Yes, Dee.
Is there an estimate of how long it will take to tabulate the results?
So we in the city of Dexter, we expect that our absentee counting board should be done by 8 p.m. on election night.
We're hopeful for the same. In August, we were done by 8 p.m. and we have doubled our election workers for absent voters. So we have 8 people. We had 4 in August, and we now have 8, and we have 2 tabulators. So even if we have double the return ballots, we are hopeful if they start at 7 a.m., they'll be able to be done by 8 p.m. But they, everybody needs to stay, and particularly people who count absent ballots are sequestered, and they cannot leave until it's all done. So we're hopeful they'll be done by 8.
Wow. Another
Yes, a couple more questions.
question, Dee. This is good.
Sure. Here's a question from Nancy Shuey. What is your procedure for voters who refuse to wear a mask?
There's not a lot of procedure involved. The Secretary of State has been very clear that you cannot be denied your right to vote if you are unable to wear a mask. So we have masks available. I think the election inspectors would ask someone to wear a mask if they refuse. Our goal, I suppose, is to get them in and out as quick as possible. No pressure on a voter, of course, how it's a long ballot, however long it takes them. But we are trying to arrange our precinct in such a way that no one will be within 6 feet of each other. So if a voter comes in without a mask, we will do our best to make sure everyone is distanced, but of course that is their right to do so. So that's our process here in Sylvan.
And I would echo those same comments.
Good. And do you have one more?
Yes, the questions are flooding in. This is one, sounds like from a techie. Is the source code of the new tabulators open source? If not, does the federal or state certification procedure allow the certifiers to review the source code versus just testing the function as you described today?
That one's a little bit over my head. I think. Yeah, I think you'd have to talk with the county about that one. Probably the county IT or each vendor that has ballot tabulators in the state of Michigan.
Yeah, that's probably over most people's head. That'd be something for the county clerk or even for the Secretary of State's office. Dee, before you go to another question, I have a question for Kathleen. You had an interesting issue earlier this year facing Sylvan Township, which I think most people don't know, that really looked as if it would perhaps interfere with some of your township's ability to vote, or that they would think it would interfere. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So I'm assuming you're speaking about the culvert replacement. Is that correct, Joan? The road commission work that was being done. I think maybe you're frozen there. So we were alerted by the Washtenaw County Road Commission. They were going to be replacing a culvert right outside our township hall, which is our only polling location here. And originally, the date they said they would be beginning mid-September and be done mid-November. And it was on US 12, which is really one of the only ways and the major way to access our township hall and the precinct. So they switched the schedule a little bit and thought they'd be done in mid-October, but that was still a little alarming because people are returning absentee ballots. You know, as soon as we had them available mid-September, people were wanting those ballots to vote them and get them in. So I had a contact with the road commission. The League of Women Voters was very supportive. I know some of the residents of Sylvan, I believe of their own accord, contacted Joan or the League of Women Voters to say they were a little alarmed. The detour that was proposed by the Washtenaw County Road Commission, because they have to use paved roads for their detours, was like a 12 to 15 mile detour one way. It took people two exits further west on 94 and then down and over. There was a dirt road option that was a little closer, but it was still very inconvenient. And so the League of Women Voters was great and gave me a lot of support as I communicated with the road commission. Our county commissioner, Jason Masiewski, also got involved and was very supportive. And so it felt really good to know that people were watching, people were interested. You know, Jason had said in these rural areas, it's not as though if you're in Ypsilanti and you close Ellsworth, maybe there's still other ways to access. You know, here in these rural areas, we don't have that many road connections. So this was really going to be difficult. Fortunately, all ended well. They were able to finish the culvert replacement. It's done now, so people can access our Dropbox. They had 2 weeks of picture perfect weather, which helped a lot. And I think everything just went along right. But I would like to say a special thank you to the League of Women Voters. It was really wonderful. And I know at one point, I think you had stepped up and offered to even send postcards to our constituents to let them know. Fortunately, no one had to do that, but I would like to thank you all for doing that, and it all ended well. The road is open.
The road is open and we're really glad. Okay, Dee, another question?
Yes. Is there any concern about significant voter intimidation or hostility on election day?
I can start. I'm not super concerned about it. If someone comes in and attempts to intimidate the voters of the city of Dexter, we will contact the Washtenaw County Sheriff, and if they are lingering about the precinct, they will be removed if, by force if necessary, if they are attempting to intimidate voters.
Yeah, I'm feeling the same way. I don't expect much here in Sylvan Township. We are also housed in the same building with a state police detachment. So I have talked to the state police and asked them, they said they are sure we're not the only township that's going to want to have a little extra patrols. I'm grateful that the Secretary of State has said that open carry is not allowed within 100 feet of the polling places or in the clerk's office. And I am prepared to, just approach someone and ask them if they're not complying to please comply. And then if we need to step it up and contact law enforcement, we will. But I think hopefully most people will be understanding and not attempt to, intimidate voters in any way.
Yes, Dee.
Yes, we have a question from Carolyn Stark. Do you train volunteer poll workers? And why do they have to work such long shifts? Wouldn't you have more volunteers if you had shorter shifts, such as 4-hour blocks?
All poll workers are paid in the city of Dexter. They're considered part-time temporary. And they are required to go through training at a minimum once every 2 years with the Washtenaw County elections. I also provide supplemental trainings, usually last about an hour and a half. And so for the upcoming election, I'm offering 3 different time blocks for my election inspectors to come in, and I review material with them, give them the opportunity to ask any questions, try and get into as much of the weeds as possible, and give them an opportunity to view. And if it were an in-person training, give them the opportunity to get hands-on experience with the electronic poll book. As far as the shifts go, we do offer shorter shifts than a full day. A full day can be long and grueling. At least for those in the precinct, we are able to offer half day and evening options for shifts. And we've been fortunate to have a sufficient number of election inspectors offer their time to work on November 3rd. And we've actually gotten a very significant increase in the number of people expressing an interest for the November 3rd election. For the absentee counting board, unfortunately, that is set by state law that once you're in, you can't leave. You are sequestered. So we are working with a dedicated group who are able to work a full day and understand that once they're in the city office, they're sequestered there until at least 8 p.m. or when the ballots are done being counted. It is what it is. It's state law, and we will comply with it.
Anything to add, Kathleen?
No, we're sort of the same way. It's nice. It can be a long, grueling day. It is nice to have the same workers there throughout the day. So then if something goes wrong or something seems off, someone can say, oh, I remember this happened at 2 o'clock. A voter attempted to put in their ballot. It didn't read it correctly, or something that helps shed light when we're closing the polls. So we've been fortunate that we have people who are willing to stay all day. And as Justin said, with the AV count board, that's state law. So once they arrive, they need to stay the whole day.
Dee, did I see more questions?
One more has to do with voting in person for disabled people. When I was at a public testing last year in August, I noticed that there was, I forget the name or initials, but there was a way for people who are disabled to vote in person. Could each of you just describe what that is, or one of you, because they're probably the same?
Sure, they are the same throughout Washtenaw County. The same company that provides us the ballot tabulators, Hart, also provides what's called a VAT, or a voter assist terminal, and it is an alternative to physical paper voting. So what happens is someone comes in, they request to use the VAT. An election inspector basically sets the machine up for them. And issues them a ballot through the machine. And they have the option of using a sip and puff machine, or selecting an option on the screen using a touch screen, or using a wheel and push button options to select candidates and options for proposals on a electronic ballot. Once they're done voting, the ballot will print to a ballot printer. At that point, they will take the ballot that prints from the ballot printer and feed that into the ballot tabulator. And if they're unable to do so, then one person from each political party may assist them in that process.
Anything else, Kathleen?
Nope, that's exactly right. And that's, we have that machine available here. And we actually set it up, as you may know, the voters have a right to a ballot as of September 24th. So we have had our voter assist terminal set up here in case a person with disabilities wanted to come in and do an early vote of a ballot. So we have that set up here and they would be able to do that.
There's an awful lot that goes into making our elections work, isn't there? There's a tremendous amount. Yes, Dee, you have another question?
Yes, one more question, or actually it's something that one of our techs has supplied on chat. It's a link to the open concealed carry for this election from the Bridge, Michigan magazine. So if you're still interested in that, if you go to chat, you'll see that link and you can check it out.
There was a lawsuit that attempted to open up the deadline for counting absent voter ballots an additional 14 days. But that and that was approved in a court of claims. That lawsuit was challenged and has been overturned. So am I understanding that your latest information, and I know this changes daily, your latest information from the Secretary of State's office and from the Attorney General in your hands by 8 o'clock the day of the election and must be counted that day. Is that correct, Kathleen?
Yes, that's correct. And you're correct. It seems like it changes often. But right now that is, we're back to the way it has always been, which is your ballot must arrive by 8 p.m. on election day. So if I go out the next day to the mailbox and see a ballot there, unfortunately right now that ballot will not be counted. But we do make every effort to make sure we get all the ballots around 4 o'clock. I call the Chelsea post office and ask them if their carriers have picked up any ballots that could be delivered. And usually there are 1 or 2 ballots there. So we drive to the post office and pick those up to ensure that those are counted. But that's correct. They need to be returned by 8 p.m. on election day.
Anything on your end, Justin?
I would say the same thing. In addition, our office has to be open until at least 8 p.m. to allow people to bring their absentee ballots back in person. And so, we will check our Dropboxes right at 8. We will have our doors open so that way people can return the ballots in person. And we do also check with the post office as late as possible on election day.
Joan,
Our audience?
Joan, did you ask a question? We couldn't hear you.
Any more questions from our audience? It looks good, huh? Okay, so we have a number of people saying thank you, including myself. Now, we said that we would continue this for another half hour, but it sounds as if you have way more than answered the questions. I think you've given us a good idea of just exactly how much work goes into making this a safe election. I am grateful to the two of you and to the rest of the clerks in our county and in our state. And if there aren't any more questions, I think we'll close. But please, if you will you email the League of Women Voters, and will somebody put that contact information on the chat? And we'll get you whatever answers we can. Is there anything else from you, Dee? I know you need to do some closing.
Yes, and we've had a couple of other, first of all, lots of appreciation. So thank you, Kathleen and Justin. There's one more about, does Dexter still have a Dropbox at the sheriff's office? The League of Women Voters list doesn't include that unless I read it wrong.
So we do have two Dropboxes. There is one to the left of the sheriff's office door at 8140 Main Street. And then there is a relatively new Dropbox that was installed in front of the PNC Bank at 8123 Main Street, which is where the city office is located. And voters can use either Dropbox to drop off their ballots. And we do check both of those Dropboxes at least multiple times a day.
I can't tell you how impressed I am with how much work goes into this. And I thank you both a great deal for taking the time out of a very busy schedule to be with us. Dee has some closing remarks. So Dee, back to you.
Well, thanks to Joan, Kathleen, and Justin, and all the participants who asked questions for an informative discussion about election 2020. Please sign up for our November 20th presentation by Al Chambers, our favorite election commentator and political junkie. Al was our speaker for Lunch and Learn in 2018 and was so popular we had to have him back to discuss the outcomes of that election. Al's topic next month is Election 2020, Connections, Complexities, and Confusions. And yes, the date will be 17 days after Election Day, so it should be a most interesting program. And be sure to sign up when you receive your email invitation. Now, how do you receive an email invitations? You get one automatically if you're a member of the League of Women Voters. So perhaps it's time to consider being a part of this organization that has 100 years of history behind it. Just check out our website, lwvannarbor.org, to join. Many of you know that last month's Lunch and Learn was an introduction and discussion of Doris Limke's book, We Would Not Be Denied, about Ann Arbor League members who helped win a women's right to vote, as well as helped establish the Ann Arbor League. I'm delighted to say that the book is now available. You can order it on our website, lwvannarbor.org, $17, and it will be yours. So check it out. And thanks to our hardworking and delightful tech team for today's presentation. That's Susan Woolley, Shelley Shanfield, and Linda Williams. So all of you, stay safe, stay well, be sure to vote, and see you next month.
That was good. Okay.